So I'm Chloe Benjamin. I'm with University Career Services at UNC Chapel Hill. And part of the reason I'm so happy to come and present to you is because I love Tar Heels. I am a twice over UNC alumna. I went here for my undergrad degree in journalism forever ago, worked in that field for a while, went back to what I really wanted to do later, and now I'm where I want to be. So I got my master's degree in counseling in 2009. And I'm really happy to be here serving fellow alums. And we have a guest here, which is Mack Llloyd, who is a former football player. So we're really excited to have him. Thank you so much, Mack, for being here. I'll let you go ahead and jump on the mic and introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, my name is Mack Llloyd. I played for the football team from 2009 to 2013. I was a long snapper for those 5 seasons. So had a couple different coaches. Started off with Coach Davis and ended up with Coach Fedora. I work now as a team lead of talent acquisition for Personify, which is actually a business owned by another former athlete, former football player, Ryan Carfley, who actually played for Mac Brown the first time he was there at UNC. So wanted to get on. What I do now is I recruit people, find people for jobs. So I'm looking at resumes every single day, and was able to use my connections here at UNC really to find a home. So I've been with Personify for the last 7 years. Excited to talk to you guys about why resumes are important and really how we could help you when it comes to networking and getting that next phase out of school. So glad to be here, guys.
So I feel like it doesn't get a lot better than that. We've got somebody who not only played football at UNC, but who has really understands the value of the resume, working as a recruiter now. So it's just, I feel like it's a great value add having you here. Thank you so much for being here. So as we get started, the first thing I'm going to present on is sort of what a resume is used for. And I'm going to invite you students, you juniors and seniors, to this is your first opportunity to get involved. What do you think a resume would be used for? Thinking about being your student athlete, you're probably hoping to get recruited, planning to get recruited. What use is a resume for you? And how do you think your resume might get used? You can go ahead and answer, either come on mic or camera or throw it into the chat. And I'll give you a little while to think through that, just so I don't present things that are super obvious. Okay, well, you're going to have many more opportunities to give a lot. Somebody went on mic. Wait, hold on. Wait. JJ Jones, please. I would be very grateful if you would jump in and say something. That put you on the spot. Maybe you didn't mean to put your camera on. Y'all, also, I want to encourage you, you are very invited to put your cameras on, because otherwise we're talking to an empty room. Like that way we see if you're engaged and we can pace ourselves accordingly. So please, I invite you, put your cameras on if you're up for that. If you have a good reason why you don't want to, that's understandable, but I really encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for those of you putting your cameras on. Really appreciate it. All right, so I'm just going to jump into the next slide. And so what a resume is used for. Your resume is, you can think of it as a personal branding brochure. It's like a one-page brochure that you give people to help them understand what value you can bring to their organization. And that could be a student club, or it could be a job, or it could be that you're looking for a scholarship, or it could just be that you're networking. But it's a way for people to understand who you are professionally. Mack, if there's anything you want to add here, go ahead. Otherwise, I've definitely got a lot for you to talk about in the next slide.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, guys, a resume is extremely important. I mean, I bet the biggest thing that you can get out of that resume is really some work with, how you can present yourself in a professional manner, working really with helping you network with a lot of people. I know that's what we're kind of going to go over the next slide, Chloe, but it was a big deal for me when I was a student athlete, right? I was started my senior year. I got hurt twice, unfortunately, when I was playing football. So just a career as a football player was not going to be what was for me. So what I did was I really took advantage of what North Carolina can offer from a networking perspective, what we can offer from a services perspective that we have at the university, helped get my resume right and helped me get a job right out of school. Not only that, but working with, another athlete who owns his own business, and kind of getting that team mentality that I was missing. after football. So, really there's a lot of opportunity for you to create this and set yourself apart from other people as you graduate from school. Not everybody can have a full-time job right when they go to school, because I know how much you guys do. I've been there, I've been in your seat. It's difficult, right? It's difficult. You're better at time management. You've got the opportunity to overcome adversity. You work harder than a lot of other people do, and it's just different. You've got a different mentality, and companies are looking for that mentality as we go out and recruit. I know that currently in our organization, we have 3 other former football players. One's a partner, one's the president and CEO of our company, and then me. We've got other, and I'm working as a manager now, where I manage a group of 9 people, and got to do that at a relatively young age. So I've only been out of school for going on 7 years, but have been able to kind of grow and develop my career through the skills that athletics has taught me. So really want you guys to take advantage of this kind of stuff, right? You'll never know when you need it. So that's the biggest thing about kind of why you need a resume, why it's important to do, and really why it's important to use your network when you can with what you have when you join the North Carolina football family.
Thank you very much for that. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, good. Just making sure. So why should student athletes do a resume is sort of the next topic I would like to explore. I'm going to invite you all once again to maybe give some answers about why would you just do a resume? If you have one, maybe why do you have one? If you don't think you need one, I also don't mind if you chime in and be like, I don't need a resume and this is why, and we can discuss that. You guys are a shy bunch here today. All right, well, okay.
To impress employers.
Thank you, thank you. That's one reason. And I'm not sure how many of you are thinking about the job market, but I'm going to go ahead and thank you very much, Adam Buck, for sharing that thought. These are some reasons why an athlete should do a resume. And Mac, I definitely think that I'm going to invite you, talk about the parts you're comfortable with, and I'll talk about the parts, the rest.
Yeah, no worries. So guys, yeah, you're not going to play your sport forever. I mean, I played football since I was 8. Thought I was going to play forever, right? We all want to go and go on and play in the NFL. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? That's kind of the dream. Like I said, that came crashing down. I tore my ACL my first time, my junior season, or excuse me, redshirt sophomore season, right before a coaching change, which is a tough time to do anything or get hurt like that. Then got hurt first game of my senior season against South Carolina. And that was just kind of like, it was a blow, right? So definitely kind of a blow to what you think is going to happen in your career. While I did that, I was like, you know what, I've got to get a job, right? That was the next thing that came to my mind, right? As I have to get a job. I've been playing football since I was 8. This is something I've always wanted to do. But I've got a huge network that I could tap into. So that's the next piece, right? I mean, guys, there's guys that want to help you out. They want to help you find where you need to go and what you want to do with your career. So I was lucky enough to find that. We had a networking night through football. Corey, I think you had helped set that up for us. I actually got an internship 2 months later, had a full-time role within that organization. The other piece, guys, you can copy this over to your LinkedIn profile. I know I just heard you guys talking about LinkedIn. That you can use your LinkedIn as a weapon, right? I mean, it's a social media tool that you can use to go out and find new opportunities, and to find jobs that you want to work in. Really, the opportunity to show your experience, creativity. If you know how to design, if you're good at that, show it on your resume. I've gone on Canva. I've created my own resume. It looks different and it kind of stands out from the crowd, right? So it helps to have that. Not only that, but you've been a student athlete for 4+ years. You're doing 20+ hours of work, and I know it's more than that a week, right? You're putting in work after. You're getting schoolwork done. You've got a degree, so it's a big deal. Employers are looking for that. And then the last thing, it's expected, guys. I mean, it is expected in a professional environment to have that resume written. Things have changed. The rules have changed over my time of recruiting people and being a recruiter, and kind of the level of creativity you can show has changed, but it's still expected for you to get an opportunity in a job. I look at hundreds of resumes a day in my role, and we recruit for some multi-billion-dollar organizations. So it's enjoyable. to look at these things and kind of learn how to do it. And then it's also enjoyable to find a role that you're really passionate about, and not just something that kind of, where you have a job, right? It's just a job to kind of get you from paycheck to paycheck. It's something that you're passionate about, and doing this resume can definitely help you out and get you ahead when it comes to looking for that next step out of college.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, as a career counselor who works with students at UNC on a regular basis, let me tell you that your resume, but the quality of your resume will directly correlate with the quality of the roles available to you many of the times. Not 100% of the time, because the networking piece is so important. So that also is going to affect it. But it's really important to have a resume that's really targeted and designed to get you the kind of jobs that you're interested in when that time comes. And, you're not going to play your sport forever is a hard reality. I think, I think that Max, the situation was really hard, had to be really hard what you went through with tearing your ACL and having your career cut short like that. We all hope that that's not how your career ends, but sports careers, no matter what they are, they don't last forever. Eventually you will need that resume. And, as a student at UNC, you get free help with your resume. When you leave UNC 1 year out, you don't get that free help anymore. Then you got to pay somebody. So definitely use the help while you got it. Another thing also that I would like to add to this is that when you're applying to business school, which now that I know that this is juniors and seniors, none of you are probably doing that, but if you are a junior trying to get into the business school, you do need to have a resume for that, for the undergrad business major at UNC, or for those of you who want to get a grad degree later, you're going to need a resume for graduate school. And just like Mac talked about, employers look for student athletes, so do graduate school programs. They value that experience that you have in that time management, and how you highlight that is very important in those applications. Maybe your GPA isn't as high as the average student at UNC, but as a student athlete, they understand that it's much harder to keep up that GPA when you're juggling all that you are juggling. And so it's a chance to tell your story, and for you to take control of the image people have for you. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier when I really briefly have mentioned the concept of your personal branding brochure. Like, who are you? What is the story you want to tell? Your resume is one of the places where you will tell that story. And I imagine you're probably inundated with messages about personal branding as athletes. I'm not sure if you are, but I imagine you are. So just think of this as part of that. So I'm going to go ahead here and kind of jump into the content of this, and kind of start with this idea that there's not one right way to do a resume. A lot of people will tell you there is. People are going to tell you, you have to do this, you have to do that. There's a lot of rules. The rules mostly are pretty bendable, and most of them exist for reasons. And in general, I think it's good to have some rules in mind, follow them unless you have a good reason to break them. And there are often good reasons why you should break them. But some of these rules have reasons. And so some of what I talk about when I discuss the rules, we'll kind of discuss maybe what some of those reasons might be. While there are a lot of rules you can break, though, there is some general consensus. And this is what the general consensus is. The format of your resume must be easy to read, which means it needs to be consistent. It needs to have good spacing. Some resume templates that cram jobs together so there's no space between them. That's really hard for someone to read. So making sure that it's very readable, that when a recruiter looks at your resume, they're skimming and they're going to see what you have in bold first. So what you have in bold is really important. Make sure that you're being strategic about what's in bold. You want your resume to be focused on the skills that you have, so that when an employer reads your resume, they see those skills pop out. And those skills that you are focusing on are the ones that are relevant for the field you're trying to go into, and maybe the specific job that you're trying to get, or the specific grad school that you're trying to get into. So that's really customization part. Proofreading is kind of common sense, but looking at a lot of resumes all the time, I can say that a lot of people don't do a very deep level of proofreading. And that's one of the great reasons to come to career services, so that we can help proofread your resume. A spelling error could make or break an opportunity for you. And you really want to keep it to one page as a graduating or junior student. More than one page is rarely appropriate. This is one of those rules where you can break it in some extreme exceptions, but generally you want to keep to it. And Mac, do you have anything to say on any of these topics? Just anything really stand out for you when you're looking at resumes from this?
Yeah, good question. I mean, kind of entry-level resumes, guys, you got to set yourself apart from everybody applying. So, I mean, again, it's a lot about the resume, and it's a lot about what you kind of do after that point. We can kind of talk about that down the line, but yeah, I mean, definitely customize it to your skill. Definitely proofread, because I know that we're doing that as recruiters every single day. And any way you can make yourself stand out, the better. Especially with entry level positions, guys. I mean, it's just very difficult to kind of separate some of those resumes sometimes. And if you can highlight your skill set as a student athlete, you can highlight your ability to manage your time. You can highlight your ability to go to school while also carrying a job and stuff that you've got to do from a football perspective. Yeah, just try your best to set yourself apart in those ways. But yeah, we'll get to the other stuff down the line, Chloe, but I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So these are just a couple notes. I already mentioned, don't cram your experiences together. Try to keep your margins, pretty, not too tight to the edge of the page, or it won't print right, and your font should be between 10 and 12 point, unless it's your contact information section, which is the first section I'll go over. So there's a lot of different sections that you can include on your resume, and you get to choose what you want to put in each and what the sections are. But standard sections include the ones on this slide, so contact information, education, experience, for y'all, athletics experience, maybe skills. We'll go into depth on each of these. So for the contact information, I won't spend a lot of time here, but the main concepts are that you would want your name to be bigger than the rest of the text on your resume. You really want your name to stand out and be memorable. For your address, it is optional whether you give your full address or not. That's an it depends scenario. And I'll come back to that one in a second and just ask Mac his opinion on when you think it's important for someone to use their full address, and when not. I recommend you all put your LinkedIn profile in your contact information bar. Definitely need your email address, that's not optional. And if you're using your phone number, which I imagine you probably should, do make sure that your voicemail is professional, so that if someone calls, they don't end up hearing something they shouldn't be hearing, and make sure it's not full, which is a mistake I actually made once. I was looking for a job and I didn't even know my voicemail was full. So just, make sure you're ready to collect messages. If you're on LinkedIn, make sure you Google this if you haven't heard of it. I don't know if you already heard about it, but get a vanity URL that's as close to your name as possible, because it looks a lot more professional than Jack B. Quick 56789. So if you can get that vanity URL, that's like your first name, last name. If you need to, you can do first name, last name, degree, or first name, last name, football, like however you want to do that. Mac, what are your thoughts about contact information? What are you looking for when you're hiring?
Yeah, so I can tell you with the location, if you guys are looking for opportunities and roles that are kind of outside of North Carolina, or you're looking to potentially work somewhere else, I would not include your address. There's some recruiters that work kind of in some large corporations that unfortunately are going to discount somebody who's too far away from that position. So if you're looking for a position out of state, I wouldn't include your email, your address specifically. If you're looking for something in North Carolina, obviously that's fine. But you can give them your address later on down the road. You just want to hear about the position and give yourself the best chance to be contacted. Definitely include your LinkedIn. It's just a commonplace right now. And then, yeah, my voicemail was spotty in college for sure. So make sure that's up to date and keep it professional as you possibly can. But yeah, those would be my tips and what I look for when we're recruiting for our positions as well.
Thank you, Mac. And just one other note, you can actually, in the featured section on LinkedIn, you can optionally attach your resume to the featured section. If you are doing that, you may want to that's the one exception for contact, where you may want to take your contact information out of it and just let people contact you through LinkedIn, because you don't want to start getting spammed by random trolls on the internet. So that's the one time if it's posted online in a public venue, then be careful about giving your full address information. Students, does anyone have any questions about contact information before I move to the next section? And I'm going to ask in each section if anyone has questions. So if you have questions as we move along, just go ahead and throw them in the chat or hold on to them. And when I ask, have them ready to go. So I don't see any questions. If you have some come up later, no problem. In the education section, So I don't want to read the slide to you per se, because there's a lot of information here, and I will send you the slides after this. But the main points, the main takeaways here that I want you all to get is that as a college student, you want to have your education right under the contact information section of your resume. Once you are a mid-career, you can decide if you want education at the top, at the bottom, wherever you want it. But when recruiters are hiring you, they're hiring you as a college student. So at this stage, you would have that at the top. In terms of study abroad, honors, and related courses, you can have that in the education section at the top, or you can actually put some of those items in other areas. So if you're applying for a role where you really need them to know that the courses that you took, that the specific courses are very applicable for that role, you may want to go ahead and put related courses like right where they can see it. Or you could even create a section on your resume further down toward the bottom that says, related courses. Same with the study abroad, you can put it right under education, but if it's not something that you feel is important for that role and you have other things that are primary, you can potentially put study abroad under an activities section. So you have choices to make about where you put the sections on your resumes and what's a subsection and what's not. So just know that always these other things, you always want to have them, the expected grad date, the degree you're earning, the major and minor, and if your GPA is over 3.0, you can definitely include that. It's considered to be a good thing, but you don't have to include it if it's not. Here's an example of what a education section could look like. So you can see some things here, GPA is on here, the date is right aligned. It doesn't have to be right aligned, but it can create kind of nice spaciousness in a resume sometimes to do that. You can see the honors, including being a Tar Heel Scholar athlete, are listed. ACC academic honor roll will be listed. Any kind of athletic scholarships you got, you could put into this honor section here. If Mack or Camille, if either of you have anything to add, let me know. And I did say earlier on a slide, I forgot to address this, that Cricket would be here, and Cricket had something else come up, so Cricket Lane is not here and Camille is in her place. Thank you for Camille, by the way, for being here. If you have nothing to add, then I'll go ahead and move forward. No questions from any students on this one? All righty. So the experience section is the one that I think kind of trips people up the most, because it's kind of like, what do I put here? It's like, what are the most important sections? And it's a section that you can call a lot of different things. So you can call it relevant experience, you can call it business experience, professional experience, selected qualifications. Sometimes people will have a section that's called like relevant experience, and then later down they'll have another section that's called other experience. And part of the reason that's useful is because within the experience section, you are expected to list your experiences in reverse chronological order. So the most recent experience will be at the top, followed by the next one, and then the next one after that. Sometimes your most recent experience is not the one you want to show off. And so having a related experience section can help you show that up near the top half of your resume, which is really what people see first. And then you can have the other experiences that are less prominent for the role you're applying for be further down that page. In terms of the kinds of experience you can put in the experience section, you have a lot of leeway here. You can have paid jobs, but you can also have internships and volunteer experiences in the main experience section, or you can put them in their own section under volunteer and internship. That's really up to you, how you want to convey that and what you think is most important. You can also potentially put your athletics experience, because being a student athlete is like a job. So you could even put that in the experience section, in my opinion. Mac, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I know I did when I was first starting off. I mean, that's what I had done in college, right? I didn't have a ton of other experience to kind of build off of overall, right? It's tough to get some internships. It's tough to get that volunteer work, especially when we're as busy as we are as athletes. So, yeah, I would definitely use your student athlete experience as experience for you on your resume.
Yeah, thank you. And for sure, it should go somewhere. Like, you need to have it on there. It's kind of a question like, where do you want to put it? And that's something that, a lot of these things you can work out with a career counselor, but it's just something as a starting point that is definitely something worth including. Let's see. So I'm going to talk to you a little about what are called strong bullet points. You want to make sure that in your experience section, each of your bullet points is very strong. And I'm hoping this video is going to work. I'm hoping that this is, let me make sure that I've optimized this. Well, let me know if you guys can hear the volume, or like wave at me if it's not working. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this video. Can you hear that? No? Okay. Hold on then. Let me do, I think I can do new share. Let's see, there's a way to optimize this under more. Here we go. Okay, just one sec here. Very good. Okay, now I think it should work. I can't see you anymore, so if you can't hear, just kind of yell at me, Mack or Camille.
Before you start your resume, it is important to think about all of the experiences you've had, from customer service experience or playing a sport, from being in the classroom or participating in a student organization. The important piece is to think of all of the skills that you've learned. As you do this, also consider the skills the employer is looking for. These can range from communication to critical thinking and interpersonal skills. After considering all of your experiences and the skills you've gained, begin creating your bullet points. For each bullet point, make sure you ask yourself the following questions. Did I start with a verb that directly highlights a skill? Did I write how I did it, why I did it, or the impact of what I did? Let us put this into practice and pretend that you were the captain of your soccer team. Some great words to begin the bullet point would include led, managed, oversaw, organized, and coached. Next, let's practice writing the how, the why, and the impact. How? Led a team of 12 soccer players by promoting effective communication among all team members. Why? Led a team of 12 soccer players to promote our school's first soccer league. Impact. Led a team of 12 soccer players and won the championship.
Okay, so let me come back on here again. I've got to fix my video now, one sec, because I don't see anyone anymore. All right, you guys are back now. Thank you. Okay, so it sounds like that video worked okay. Sorry, a couple pauses happened in there. So just to talk a little bit more about that video and what that means for you all, to go a little bit more in depth. You know, and sorry, this graphic I pulled is really blurry, but I took a little screenshot and it didn't come out too clearly. But when you're using action verbs to highlight your skills, I wanted to explain a little bit more about what that actually means. So something I've seen on a lot of resumes is people will put responsible for, or participated in, like Richard Bador Leadership Academy. So participated in is not as strong as other things you could use. Like, for example, rather than saying you participated in something, which sounds pretty passive, like, oh, you were just like there in the room. Okay, right. It might be more valuable to say like something along the lines of like, learned leadership skills that I was able to execute on the team in order to do such and such. Or like, advanced understanding of, like, you want to use more powerful words than that you just participated in something. Responsible for doesn't really mean very much. If you're responsible for leading a team, just say led team. It's way more powerful. So whenever you want to put responsible for, think about what that next verb is and use that instead. Also think about what the employer or opportunity that you're looking at, what skills they're looking for, and try to find verbs that demonstrate those skills. So if they're looking for leadership, find opportunities to say you led. If they're looking for teamwork, find opportunities to say teamed with, partnered with, liaised. If you're stuck and don't know what verb to use, just Google action verbs resume and you will find loads of action verbs categorized by whether it was for leading or organizing something or contributing as a team member. The other piece I wanted to talk about a little bit more is just in that strong bullet point, the narrator talked about the importance of answering these questions about what it is you did, either why you did it, the impact of it, or how you did it. In addition, you also want to quantify whenever you can. The more you can quantify, the better it is. So there's some examples here on that. I'm going to show some formatting examples and then go ahead and see if anybody has anything to add here, if there are any questions about this section. With these examples, you can see there's two different ways of putting down experiences. And the first one is really good if you had two roles in one company. Whereas the second one is a nice approach when you don't have that situation happening necessarily. So it's one way that you can highlight that. Mack, is there anything you would add to the experience section of what it is that you're looking for when you're hiring candidates?
Yeah, it's kind of more when you get later on in your career, but always include months and dates on those time frames. Just because I promise you, we'll ask you about the months and dates that you were there to make sure there's like a continuity of work and everything like that. But that's kind of later on down the road. So no, overall, yeah, that's what we look for in our resumes when we're recruiting. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mack. And as far as the months and years go, I see people sometimes do like spring semester. Is that okay for a student, or do you prefer that they're?
Yeah, that's good for a student. Yeah, right. For somebody who's kind of like that entry level role, that's completely fine. Yep.
Great, thank you very much. All right, students, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. I'm going to take a little bit of time here, see how we're doing. All right, we're doing all right. So additional sections that you might want to include. We'll talk about a little bit here. So I'm spending a little more time. There's a lot of additional sections. I'm spending a little more time on two of them. One of them is about skills, and one of them we're going to talk about in its own part of this presentation, which is like your skills as an athlete. So this is more about the like skills section of a resume that you could potentially use. And I wanted to talk briefly here about what kinds of skills you would put into your, what kind of skills you would put into your resume. And if we were in a room, I would ask you this. And actually, I think I'll still ask you. I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to see your responses. I am. Okay. Okay. I want everybody to look at the participant bar if you can. You can load the participant section on Zoom or use your reactions. Either way would be okay for this. And I would like you to raise your hand if you have any of the following skills. This is much easier to do in person, so we're going to try to do this on Zoom. So raise your virtual hand, or just go on camera and raise your hand, whatever you want to do this. If you speak a foreign language, and keep your hand up if you do. If you can do any kind of computer programming. If you know how to use Excel. I hope I'm going to see some hands go up here for this one. If I don't, I'm going to assume that maybe you all don't know how to do the hand raising, which is okay. Okay, I see some hands going up for Excel. Okay, yes, thank you. I see a lot of hands starting to go for Excel. If you know how to use social media. If you, and again, just keep your hands up if you put them up. If you know how to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs. If you know any software at all, basically, if you use PowerPoint for presentations and classes, because if you do, that's data presentation skills right there. I mean, that's desirable for employers. So the point is, now I think that if we were in a normal room, every single person's hand would be up because you all have skills. You all have hard skills. And thank you for participating in that. You all have hard skills. Those are the skills that are teachable. You're not born with them. You're not just going to get them just from like living life passively. The soft skills are the people skills, like the interpersonal skills, like communication, leadership, flexibility. They're important too. both of these skills are important, but when you do the skills section on your resume, the hard skills that employers are looking for, matching to those is the most important thing to do. And from talking to employers, I think some employers are okay with people putting soft skills in the skill section and some less so. So in a moment, I'm going to open up a conversation on that topic. But one way that you can convey those soft skills is through the bullet points and the experience sections of your resume. So if communication is a soft skill they're looking for, say you communicated with. If flexibility is a skill, you can say like, did such and such, using skills of flexibility to solve problems or flexibly solving problems. There's ways that you can use the soft skill language creatively in your bullet points without putting them in the skill section necessarily for those employers who don't prefer that. The problem with putting soft skills in the skill section of your resume is if you say that you have good communication skills, like how do they know that? Like do they give prove that you have it, give an example. Because anybody can say they have good communication skills. Anybody can say that they're flexible. Mack, what do you think about skill sections? What do you like to see in there?
Yeah, so a lot of what we do is search for those hard skills specifically, right? I mean, again, that's what we do, and then we screen on some of those soft skills, if that makes any sense. So guys, those soft skills are really important. It's important when you go to interviews to have, examples of where you led something or your teamwork or your time management. Practice a little bit. I can tell you my first interview was pretty awful. But luckily it was supposed to be like a practice interview, but I know it was an actual interview for Personify. So those soft skills are things that you need to have examples of right when you go into an interview. Those hard skills, if you have some sort of programming language that you use, if you can program computers, if you can use Excel, those are all things that are important, right? And that we're trying to match up to each job description. So take a look at the job description, look at it. If you've got the skill sets that they're asking for, try to work your resume and tailor your resume to that job description, right? And then when you've got soft skills and interpersonal skills, make sure you have those examples, because just to be honest, those are almost more important than those hard skills in some cases when you're opening up, especially an entry level position. We want to see that you know how to work hard, how you can work through, how you have good time management, how you can lead a team from any seat you're in. So that kind of stuff is really important to have examples about and really think about before you go into that first interview.
Thank you very much for your perspective on that as well. And one thing also that stood out to me when you're talking is you mentioned that when you search for candidates, you're looking for hard skills. And so how do you search for candidates? How do you find them?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that we find them. It depends on the role we're working on. We use something called Boolean searching. I won't bore everybody, but it's basically a way that you can put together a search string in like Indeed or in LinkedIn or even in Google to where I match kind of a job proficiency with these hard skills. And we are looking for keywords. We ask hiring managers, what keywords do you want us to look for on each resume as we move forward in this search? So that's really important that you have those things in your resume. If you want to be in computer programming, and you're a computer scientist, you want to have some languages, so JavaScript, C++, C#, things that you've worked with and worked on. If you want to go into an opportunity in project and program management and talk about your Excel skill set, how you're able to set up different tables, what type of functions you're able to do in Excel, because those will come up in a search when I'm looking for a resume. So that's how we look for them is specific hard skills, and then we actually go in and we'll screen for those soft skills, right? And that's where those examples come in handy. So that'll be a phone call. So you've got to get ready to have those conversations. You've got to be able to show that you can do the hard skill pieces. So have examples around those, but it's really important that soft skills are kind of the centerpiece of your interview. So that's really what we look for when we look for resumes.
That's so helpful. So like your resume gets you in the door, but then there's and that's your hard skills. So your hard skills get you in the door. Your soft skills land you the job. So you need both. And University Career Services, we help with mock interviews too. So even if you don't have an interview lined up, practice. I recommend even applying for some jobs that you want a little bit less, just so you can practice failing in those interviews in a place where you're not so pressured, because interviewing is a hard skill for sure. That's really helpful, Mack, to hear that piece about how you're searching as an employer for applicants based on the hard skills in their resume. It really drives home that point. I think that it's really important to have those in your resume and on LinkedIn as well. But, you know, this isn't about LinkedIn, but definitely there are so many parallels here. So other sections that you might have on a resume, I'm not going to go into these in great depth because I will be sending you these slides, but you can have a volunteer experience section, especially for like one-time events. Those you'd probably be more likely to put in a volunteer section or in an activity section rather than in the main experience section, unless you just don't have much in the main experience section. You can have an activity section as is shown here. You can have an honors and award section. I already talked about that, so I won't go into that when we talked about skills. Now, here's the part that's really extra unique for you as student athletes. I guess maybe before I move on, though, I do want to make sure that there's no questions on that last slide, and make sure that Mac or Camille, that you don't have anything to add here. Okay, I think it's pretty straightforward, all that stuff. So student athlete branding tips is the next thing I want to discuss with you all. So you want to communicate these on your resume and your cover letter, LinkedIn, and in your interviews. Let me see if I can make sure I time this well. Okay. So I'm just going to go through these pretty fast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the first few and send you the slides so you can read through the rest. But some things that are really special about you all as student athletes is that, like, one thing to start with, you are successful. I have a friend who is an HR director and recruiter at Procter & Gamble, and he was talking to me about how he likes to hire student athletes. And I was asking him why, and he's like, they're successful, man. They're already successful. Who doesn't admire a student athlete and all that they've achieved, that dedication to get where you are? Just that success in itself is really something that you can be highlighting. Your leadership, because everyone on the team is involved in leadership roles at some point. Your communication skills, you have to learn how to take cues on the field. Something really small can happen and completely change the dynamic. Now, you're able to understand how a shift in something really like a small cue can change the dynamic and how to change that around to affect the bigger picture, to take something that feels like a loss and turn it into a win, to be able to communicate with your team members to translate a loss into a win. So that can really be helpful, that adaptation and that communication in the work environment. And I'll just load these for those of you who read fast. And I will ask Mac if there's anything else that you would kind of add to this particular material.
Yeah, I was going to say the last one, constructive criticism. I know I've sat through plenty of film sessions and gotten either what felt like being annihilated, right, in that film session, or had some off days, right, during practice. But the ability to take criticism and the ability to kind of take that and then not have it happen again, you'd be surprised in the workplace how many times that comes into play. If you're coachable, if you have the ability to take that criticism and make things better and not let it ever happen again in a work environment, there's nothing you really can't do or that somebody can't teach you. So that's a big one that I was hoping was on there, that ability to kind of take constructive criticism and grow from it. But yeah, all these things, guys, are what employers are looking for.
Yeah, these are things that you'll give examples of in job interviews as well, right, Mac? Like, you'll ask behavioral questions, like talk about a time when someone criticized you and how did you handle it?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of your experience, guys, is giving you a high level of emotional intelligence. Like it's called EQ. That is actually you're more successful in your role if you have a high level of EQ than if you have a high level of IQ. So employers are looking for that. And if you can have succinct stories about times when you've had these things take place, yeah, there's really nothing you can't do. Coachable is the biggest one, guys. If you can be coachable and anything you do, you can do it. So those are really important to market your skill set, especially as student athletes.
Yeah, and so you can be thinking about these things as you develop your resume. So in terms of like practicality and how to show these athletic skills on your resume, you kind of want to think about integrating your brand. And I won't go into a lot of detail about that at this point, because I think you all hear a lot about the brand piece. But if you have some awareness of who you are as a person and what you want people to know about you, I almost think like before you put your resume out to an employer, ask yourself, what are 3 things I want this employer to know about me, and make sure those things stand out. There are all kinds of surveys that have been done with employers to see how long do they spend reading a resume when they're doing screenings. Mac, I'm curious how long you take. I can tell you what the data says. Mac, how long do you spend on a resume before you decide if it's going in your consideration pile even?
Good question. Not long, honestly. I've done it for a long time now, and I know what I'm looking for. So I would probably say a minute's probably being generous. It's probably closer to like 30, 45 seconds that I can scan through a resume and know if it's a fit for the job.
And that's doing a thorough job, because there was a study done. I forgot who did it. I have the data if anybody wants it for any reason. But there was a study done where they did eye scans, where they watched the eyes of recruiters looking at resumes, and the average amount of time that a recruiter spends looking at a resume is 7 seconds. And it's probably because a lot of the resumes, you look at them and spelling error, toss it. Like a lot of them you can rule out right away. You probably find a few that you're going to spend more time on, but the average overall 7 seconds. So sometimes I'll do an exercise with students where I'll say, let's set a timer, and we're going to look at your resume for 7 seconds, and let's see what do we see in 7 seconds, and are those the things that you want someone to see in 7 seconds? So when you think about your personal brand, what do you want someone to see in those 7 seconds that they have to, before they decide whether or not this is a resume that they're really going to even bother to read? Things you can include on your resume that you may or may not have thought of include public speaking, which a lot of you may get to do as student athletes in media or at camps. I know a lot of you probably have had opportunities in camps, at schools or conferences. You can include any training you've done, any coaching that you've done. At the bottom, I have the Richard A. Bador Carolina Leadership Academy and the Athlete Scholar Awards. Definitely be including that. University Career Services, we have worksheets to help you figure out how to articulate that. And I believe Student Athlete Development also has those same worksheets. So we can help you think through, depending on if you're like, how far you made it into that academy, what experiences you want to highlight from it. And if you have Athlete Scholar Awards, where to put those on your resume and how to best highlight that. If you are captain or co-captain, you have an opportunity to put that as experience and describe your responsibilities. Also, if you ever got like a conference award or a player of the month award, is there anything that you would like to add to this, Mac or Camille? Nope. All right. Okay, that seems I'm probably being thorough on that one, so that's good. Here's an example, or some examples of some bullet points that could be on a student athlete resume. If anybody wants to hold on to this, you can screenshot it. But again, like I said, I will go ahead and send these slides. So I'll give you all a moment to read it. If anybody has any questions, now's a great time to start putting them into the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and move forward and just kind of go through some final tips and open it up right at the end for some questions. So the main tips here are we already talked about using consistent formatting and spacing. Don't reveal personal details. I think most of you all know that. You don't need to put photographs on your resume. They do go on LinkedIn, which I think is a little bit controversial, but I won't get into that today. I already talked about the margins. Lying and embellishing, I think it's pretty obvious, but I do think it's worth saying, because I keep emphasizing that you want to match your skills to the job description. That's within the realm of honesty. So you want to find the skills that they're looking for that you actually have. And you do want to be a little careful. People can I don't think anybody's like intentionally lying per se, but you can accidentally exaggerate. And I'll give an example of when I did that once, because I actually got myself in some trouble when I was pretty fresh out of undergrad. I kind of knew Photoshop, like really, like barely. And I put it on my resume. So now just know, anything you put on your resume, you could either get hired for it or interviewed on it. It gets you in trouble. So I put Photoshop on there, and I got hired to do, excuse me, it's a little bit bright on my face. I got hired to do a job working for a publishing house, but what I didn't know is that it was all Photoshop. So when I got in there, they didn't really interview me, so that's partly their fault. But when I got in there, it was like, okay, whoa, they want me to do some pretty advanced stuff here. So I told them I don't actually, like, I know some Photoshop, but I don't know how to do this stuff. And they're like, well, you put it on your resume. Now, I'm not saying that it means that you don't put it on your resume, but it does mean that you might want to put your level if it's not super high. I'm not really sure 100% how to do that. Sometimes it's just tricky spaces you can get in. I am intermediate in Spanish, and I had a job interview for a counselor role once where they straight up switched to Spanish and told me we're doing the interview in Spanish. I am not that advanced. So I was like, okay, I had Spanish on my resume because I can definitely speak enough Spanish to like field questions that are very basic, but not enough, not conversational. So you just have to be a little careful. In terms of that exaggeration embellishment thing, Mac, does that ever cross your desk? Do you have experiences with this?
It normally comes out in like the screening process, but we don't get a ton of people who embellish on their resume that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I doubt it's really a major issue. It's just like a kind of a thing of like being careful that you are highlighting the skills that you're best at. Hopefully, I think part of the problem with what happened with me with screeners didn't catch me and I should have. So a quick word about templates. Be careful with them. Some people say don't use them at all. I just say be careful because some of you need to use templates because you don't have the design skills to know how to do a resume without a template. If you're going to use a template, be really careful for a number of reasons. So the main one is because applicant tracking systems, which are basically, well, Mac, can you describe an applicant tracking system and how they read resumes?
Yeah, so it's a piece of software that just you usually apply to a job through. It'll actually take your resume and parse your skill set based on how it's written. So it's looking for some very specific things like experience and skill set. They don't parse very well. None of them do it well. So just be careful on what you use from a templating perspective, because you can try to get a little too creative and unfortunately it just ruins your resume when you apply to a job.
Yeah, and then no one sees like no human being sees it in some cases. I've been told that there's actually like artificial intelligence that will assign match scores to your resume and the job description. And so if your match score is too low, no human sees your resume. You don't want to be one of those candidates.
Yeah, I tend not to look at those match scores because they're always wrong. But yes, some ATSs will say they can do that. But yeah, that's not. I try to look at them anyway.
Yeah, that's good. What I've been kind of thinking about is, like Mac, you mentioned your resumes in Canva. Canva makes beautiful resumes for anybody who wants to get on Canva, but they're not very applicant tracking system friendly. So you might want to have a version of your resume, those of you who are really hitting the job market, that is applicant tracking system friendly. And if you want to find templates for that, you can go to the URL that I have here, jobscan.co/resume templates, or just Google search applicant tracking system friendly resume templates. If you do that, you will find templates that are about as friendly as it gets, I'm guessing, for applicant tracking systems. They won't be as pretty. You can fill them out and try to make them look a little more attractive. But what you might do is have the version that you use that you submit to the applicant tracking system, but then after you apply for the job, send the hiring manager a more attractive version of your resume. You could say, I submitted a resume online. I'd like you to see my graphical, this other version that I was afraid the pricing system wouldn't catch. I don't know if Mac, if you disagree, you're welcome to. Okay. No. So UCS actually took the templates down from our website because UCS does not want students to use templates anymore. Part of the problem with templates too is a lot of them have tables in them. And so if you want to modify your resume later, like add something or take something off, those tables can make it really difficult. But there are also some times when you have to use a template, like the business school requires that you use their template, which unfortunately has loads of tables in it. So if you're using the template and you're actually applying for a job, you might need another version of it. So I think that's what I got there. Some common errors, make sure that you're only earning one bachelor's degree. So if you're getting 2 majors, it's 1 degree. If you're applying to the undergraduate major, you need to use their template. Verb tense, if it's a job you're doing now or a role you're in now, use present tense. If it's something you've done in the past, use past tense. Try to avoid ing words. So rather than leading, say led or lead. Rather than like communicated, communicate, or not, you would say communicating, you would say communicated or communicate, for example. Be consistent and detail oriented, talked about that. Proofreading, just kind of can't emphasize that enough. And that's really it now. Mac, is there anything that you'd add to this presentation?
Yeah, and guys, use the network that you have. I wish that I would have been told that earlier on in my college career. I was, look, I was not a guy who was probably going to go to the league. I was a walk-on. I was a long snapper. But guys, I mean, again, use your network. You've got a lot of guys like me who have played, who are willing to help you out. So after this, I'll forward everybody my contact info. I'll just throw it over to Corey. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at any point you want. You've got a really good network of student athletes that want to help you out. So that's what I'd say. That was one of my biggest takeaways. I had meetings like this too. I know that they can be, after a long day, it's hard to kind of focus on it, but I can tell you, if you come to an employer with a really good resume, really professionally polished, and you're ready to talk about some of your experiences, you're going to blow them out of the water when it comes to your experience as a student athlete, because the normal student unfortunately doesn't have that, and you guys do. So you've got to use that to your advantage when trying to find positions. And the other thing is, like I said, use your network to the best of your ability. You can have the best written resume in the world, apply to jobs, and guys, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that apply to jobs on a day-to-day basis. I look through their applications all the time. I'm going to miss something important if it's not highlighted, just because of the way and the number of people that I have to go through on a day-to-day basis. So use your ability as a student athlete, use your ability to network. And the biggest thing I would say is once you apply to a job, try to go find out who that hiring manager is, who's in charge of that hiring. Try to get in contact with them, connect with them on LinkedIn, send them a message, do something beyond just applying for a job, because you're going to have trouble. I'm telling you, if you just apply for positions, you've got to be able to use the network. And like I said, you've got guys like me who are willing to help. I really wouldn't have my job if it wasn't for UNC football and the people that I met during that process. So like I said, I'll forward over my contact info. Any of you can reach out to me at any point you want. I'm more than happy to help with any of this stuff as we move forward.
Mack, thank you so much. Your guidance and input to this is really just incredible. So really, thank you. I'll just add that we are hiring for a position at UCS right now, and I had someone who's already in my LinkedIn network send me a message because I posted about the position and say, hey, can I do an informational interview with you about the position? And I checked her out a little more in detail. And I was like, oh, wow, she's really qualified for this. So I actually contacted my supervisor and said, you got to look out for this girl. So that's an example that happened this week of how networking can work. So get to know people at the places you want to work, like follow them on LinkedIn, like their posts. Don't just ask them to connect with no reason why they want to connect with you. Like their posts, interact with their posts. Ask them to make a connection before you're even looking for a job there. And then when the job is ready, you might hear about it. It's been said by some folks, including the guy who wrote the 2-hour job search, I forgot his name, that 70% of roles out there, the hiring manager knows who they want to hire before it's ever posted, if it's even ever posted. And so you want to be in that 70%, and the networking is essential. And your resume is part of that networking, so it's completely relevant to be thinking about that here. Definitely want to include that. Cricket, I see you just joined, and you have perfect timing for my last slide, which is basically where you can go for further help. So you can go to Cricket Lane with student athlete development. For networking, one contact, especially if you're scared to do networking, hey, Mack Llloyd's offering his contact information to you. He's inviting you. So you can get comfortable starting with Mack. And also, you're all welcome to meet with any counselor at University Career Services. I am the partner for student athletes, so you are most definitely welcome to meet with me as a starting point. But if my schedule doesn't work for you, you can see it on Handshake. You're welcome to meet with any of the counselors at UCS, and we're all equipped to work with you. If anybody has any questions, we'll take those now. And thank you for those of you who did stay a little bit late today to complete this workshop. And Cricket, if you have anything you want to add, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank you all, Chloe and Mack. Thank you so much. I'm here taking like notes. I'm like, what does my resume look like? And I think you're right, Mack. You know, it's you've had a long day and you probably don't want to be here, but this information is so good. It's stuff that you're going to need. It's stuff that's going to help. So I want to thank you all for taking time to do that for us.
Thank you. Absolutely glad to be here. And I know that the athletes, I know you all had a meeting right before this. So I feel bad. I know how it is to be like at the end of the day and you're like in Zoom for so long. So really extra thanks for those of you who stayed, and thanks for the game.
Y'all good. Y'all good. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Really appreciate that.
You guys, please reach out. I mean,
yeah, definitely. Please do so.
All righty, go get some dinner.
Yeah, go eat. I'm gonna go do the same. That dog there reminds me of my dog who's waiting for me. I had to get rid of him for a little while because he doesn't let me do workshops.
Right.
He barks during every workshop. He's like, "Quit working so hard."
Right. And Camille, thank you for sitting in for